Good day, everyone. This is Coach Reese coming at you with another great video. I'm hoping all is well with you and your family and that you're enjoying your day. Today's video uh, is going to be a part two of my boot camp series on basically, I'm just talking about the different things I experienced uh, going into boot camp. And I feel that this video is very important because if some of you young people may have interest in going into the military. So I'm just giving you some insights on what I experienced. Now, obviously, things that may have changed, it's as far as from when I went in 1991 to now. But, as far as the foundation of the discipline and the strict rules that you have to follow, I'm quite sure that that hasn't changed. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the points that I want to talk about in my part two series, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started with that. So, in the part one, I explained how the recruiter picked me up and all of that and everything. So I flew I went to boot camp in Orlando, Florida, right? So when I got there, there was, I think we had to go to the USO store or whatever it's called. The USO, back in the day, the USO is where the Orlando recruits that were going to boot camp, they had to, once they got off the plane, they would have to go to that USO building or whatever it's called to meet and and wait for the bus to take you to the base where you were going to do your basic training. So anyway, to make a long story short, once I got off the plane, and I think once I got off the plane in Orlando, Florida, I think, like I say, we had to meet at some USO building. I forgot what the initials USO stand for, but you guys can look that up. But anyway, so once they got the head count or whatever of the people that they were gonna pick up that day, we all had to get on the bus and go to the naval base for the training. Young people, I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. Now, you must understand that, in a part of the recruiting process, your recruiter shows you videos of things that you may experience, throughout your naval career, from basic training and into your career. They show you several videos on this and that, things to expect, how to prepare to go to boot camp and all of that. But actually seeing real live people in uniform, it was very overwhelming for me. I never forget that. So basically what I'm trying to say is this. I remember pulling up to the naval base in the bus that we were on, and it was almost like I was going to another planet. For me, it's totally different to see a real soldier or a real shipmate in uniform. Like when you've never had experience going to a military base and then you actually see a real live person in a military uniform, for me, it was overwhelming because I don't think I've ever experienced that before. So to make a long story short, I just remember back then they had military police or MPs at the front gate, and you were required to, either have some type of decal on your vehicle, like some type of military decal on your vehicle, or you had to have like a military ID or whatever identification that they required for you to come onto the government property. But to make a long story short, In the Navy, back when I was in the Navy, we were required, me and my boys, or I think my drill instructor called it Dixie cups. And Dixie cups are the hats or the covers that you wear on your head. And they kind of remind you of that. I don't, well, I'm quite sure it's a show called Gilligan's Island. It was, a show that came on TV back in the day. But anyway, one of the stars in that show, he wore like what you call a Dixie cup. I call it a Gilligan's Island hat, you know what I mean? But anyway, I just remember looking at that MP with his Dixie cup on, and with his military uniform on, and I think he had a gun on his hip or whatever. And I was like, wow, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, this is real, I'm really starting my career in the Navy, going to this military base. But to make a long story short, young people, that part was very overwhelming, to see that MP in uniform. And it was just like a shock factor, if you will. I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, I'm really starting my career in the Navy. So that was an overwhelming experience for me. And I think I've already explained it. Seeing the other point I wanted to make, I think I've already explained it, but I may want to reiterate it. But, seeing live people up close in front in naval uniforms is very intimidating at first because, during that time, I was a civilian trying to transition into a Navy sailor. So I hadn't quite got accustomed to wearing a uniform or being around people that have to wear, that are required to wear military uniforms the majority of the time that they're on base or on post. So, that was a very overwhelming experience for me, to see people with naval uniforms on, because like I say, I've been a civilian all my life, and then, making that transition to a sailor, it was a big jump in my life, and that's things that I remember. Um, this is a true shock factor, young people. I'm quite sure this hasn't changed, but you guys can do your research. But to make a long story short, this is my last point. When you finally get checked in to boot camp, a part of your boot camp check-in is you have to call a relative or someone that you're close to let them know that you arrived safely. And just, it's a very short phone call. Basically, the drill instructor said, whoever you call, just make sure that you tell your loved ones that you arrived safely and that you love them dearly, and then you have to get off the phone. Okay, so young people, if I remember correctly, it's a very chaotic call because if I remember correctly, I had drill instructors pacing back and forth behind me and other recruits, encouraging us to hurry up, or, whatever they were yelling. I don't remember, but it was a very stressful event that I had to experience. But, it was kind of welcoming, if you will, for a brief second, because I'm not quite sure if I was talking to my grandparents or whoever. I think it was probably my grandmother is the one that picked up the phone, but it was just a very calming experience for a brief second to, hear my grandmother's voice or my grandfather's voice. And, I just told them that, I love them dearly. And, I was just letting you know that I arrived safely. So, but that's just some little bit more information, young people, of things that you may experience if you join the Navy. I just want you to know that joining the military is a very serious choice that you take in life. And if you go through all of the boot camp and training and all of that stuff, you're going to have to fulfill your contract. Okay. So, young people, if you're thinking about joining the Navy, I firmly suggest that you give it some real deep thought. you know, you know, if you are a God-fearing person, I encourage you all to pray about it, and just really do your research before you make your final decision to join the service. Like I say, it's a very serious obligation. And once you sign the contract and, go through all the training, most likely you're going to have to fulfill your contract. Okay. I'm going to go into the conclusion of my video. And in all my videos, young people, I touch on the point of wisdom. I touch on the point of critical thinking. And then I end my video with the ending statement of practice. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. My 3 points on wisdom. Point number 1, wise people are good listeners. Wise people are good listeners. Point number 2, wise people have the thirst or desire to learn good knowledge and spiritual knowledge. Young people, point number 2 is very important. Wise people have the thirst or desire to learn good knowledge and spiritual knowledge. Point number 3, wise people have the courage to teach their wisdom. Wise people have the courage to teach their wisdom. So young people, I encourage you all to do your research on the topic of wisdom. And I pray that you all will pursue wisdom with the utmost seriousness. Young people, if you pursue wisdom with the utmost seriousness, it will benefit you in the long run. Okay? I have a statement dealing with critical thinking, and it goes like this. Always be a critical thinker, young people, especially when making big decisions. Always be a critical thinker, young people, especially when making big decisions. So young people, I encourage you all to talk to your parents or guardians about the topic of critical thinking. And your parents or guardians will help you navigate the differences between making big decisions and minor decisions. And young people, I also encourage you to do your research on the topic of critical thinking, because young people, it's just my humble opinion, the sooner you become a critical thinker, the better off you'll be, and it'll benefit you in the long run. I have an ending statement of practice, and it goes like this. I love you. I want the best for you. I want you to practice using love and wisdom in all that you do. Life is a game that you must learn how to play. Practicing love and wisdom with your family, friends, and loved ones creates a powerful team. Love conquers all, young people, even if you feel defeated. So young people, I encourage you to keep loving and keep growing and gaining in wisdom, and God will bless you in a mighty way. Young people, I encourage you all to hit the thumbs up on this video. I encourage you all to share this video with family, friends, and loved ones. And I encourage you all to subscribe to my channel. At the end of the day, young people, I want you to accomplish all your goals and dreams in life. I want you to be the best person that you possibly can be every single day of your life. That is also extremely important that you do that. I have one more nugget of wisdom before I officially conclude this video. And it goes like this. Don't ever think that you're better than anyone else, but rather, young people, think of yourself as just as good as anyone else. Humility is a vital key to successful life. I pray that you all will take that to heart. Okay, young people, I'm going to conclude the video by saying this. May God bless you, and may God keep you until we meet again.